37 flu-related deaths in Hong Kong so far this year. Proposals to regulate the disposal of old electrical and electronic equipment. And Japan vows not to give in to hostage takers.
Hello and a very good evening. Health authorities have reported at least 37 flu-related deaths so far this year. A leading microbiologist has warned that the situation could worsen during the Lunar New Year holiday next month. Liz Yoon reports.
Growing health concerns here in Hong Kong during the peak flu season. According to latest figures from the Centre for Health Protection, 37 flu patients were admitted to the intensive care units of hospitals in the first 2 weeks of this month. And in the past week, there were 41 such cases. 27 deaths related to influenza were recorded in the past week, raising January's total to 37. Most of the deaths were senior citizens aged over 67. More than 90% of the most serious cases involved the H3N2 strain. Microbiologist Ho Pak Leung predicts the number of serious cases and deaths will go up, especially around the Lunar New Year period, a busy time for traveling.
Given that the prevalent H3N2 has mutated and the much lower efficacy of the influenza vaccine, we could anticipate a more severe influenza over the next 1 to 2 months.
Secretary for Food and Health Ko Wing-man said the situation this winter is similar to last year's, a point echoed by Dr. Ho.
Sometimes the mutation will make the virus more transmissible, sometimes it make it more aggressive in causing illness. But this time, the mutation that we have doesn't involve those. We have a mutation that mainly affects the effectiveness of the vaccines.
Despite a drop in the protection rate of the flu jabs because of a vaccine mismatch, Dr. Ho joined the health chief in advocating vaccination. Dr. Ho also reassured us that the Swiss strain of H3N2 influenza is not resistant to Tamiflu, which means the common antiviral medication is still effective in fighting it. And the number of patients affected by institutional outbreaks has jumped, with 40% of these outbreaks occurring in elderly homes. Geriatrician Dr. Paul Scheer called on people to pay attention to the health of their elderly relatives and seek treatments for them if they fall ill. Liz Yun, TVB News.
Turning overseas, Japan was scrambling today to try to gain the release of 2 hostages held by the Islamic State extremist group. In a video message, the militants threatened to kill the pair by tomorrow afternoon Hong Kong time unless they're paid $200 million. Alan Bugnier reports.
The Japanese government has said it will not give in to the demands issued by Islamic State. Japan's chief cabinet secretary said the government is doing everything possible to ensure the release of the hostages. But Yoshihide Suga said the country would not cave into terrorism and would continue to contribute to international efforts to combat it. He added it's an extremely difficult situation because other than the video, the government hasn't been contacted by Islamic State. In the video, a militant gave Japan 72 hours to meet their demands, which would put the deadline at just before 2 p.m. tomorrow, Hong Kong time. Japan's State Foreign Affairs Minister met with Jordan's King Abdullah II yesterday to discuss diplomatic efforts to gain the hostages' release. Yasuhide Nakayama is believed to be the envoy tasked with handling the situation in the Middle East. The ransom demand came after a trip to the Middle East by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. During it, he pledged $200 million in assistance to countries battling Islamic State. On the streets of Tokyo, opinion is divided on whether Japan should pay the ransom. This man said paying the money wouldn't guarantee the return of the hostages and would only place Japan in an untenable position among countries fighting terrorism. This woman said that while she knows they shouldn't yield to terrorists, she couldn't imagine that they have no choice but to let them die. She said all Japanese people are currently struggling with this dilemma. Alan Bookney, TVB News.
Meanwhile, France is stepping up the fight against discrimination and inequalities in the country. Those are being seen as some of the root causes of homegrown extremism. Questions have been raised about the tough new security measures unveiled by the French government yesterday following the deadly Paris terror attacks. Among the initiatives announced by Prime Minister Manuel Valls, giving security forces better weapons and protection, hiring more intelligence agents, and creating a better database of anyone suspected of terrorist links. And at the European Union, there are plans to make the sharing of air passenger information easier. But that sparked concerns about privacy. It's drawing comparison to the US Patriot Act, passed in the wake of the 9/11 attacks in 2001. One top European official said the last thing they want to do is to change the nature of their open societies as a reaction to the terror threat. And civil liberties advocacy groups are warning against rushing the plan through without careful consideration. Besides cracking down on homegrown extremism, France also stresses the need to heal the divide between the country's haves and have-nots. The spotlight is now on life in the suburbs, home to some of the extremists linked to the recent Paris attacks. Many believe Muslims have been unfairly targeted over heightened terror fears. In the German city of Leipzig, about 10,000 people turned up for an anti-Islam rally last night. But they were outnumbered by counter-demonstrators who spoke out against the anti-immigration movement while defending multiculturalism.
Another police killing is stirring anger in the United States, this time in New Jersey. A police officer apparently shot a black man who had his hands raised. The shooting happened in the city of Bridgeton last December 30th after police pulled over a car for allegedly running a stop sign. Police dashboard camera footage shows tension escalated quickly when one of the officers, Brahim Days, who is black, warned his partner about seeing a gun in the car's glove compartment. Days screamed at the passenger, Jerame Reed, who's also black, that if he reached for something, he would be dead. The officer appeared to reach into the car and remove the gun, but the standoff ended with the passenger disregarding the officer's order not to move, stepping out with his hands raised and getting shot. The shooting touched off protests in Bridgeton. Both police officers have been placed on leave while the county prosecutor's office investigates.
US and Cuban officials are in historic talks on restoring diplomatic relations and immigration trends. It's the highest level US delegation in Cuba in 35 years. Yesterday, the two sides talked about issues ranging from the security of charter flights to rooting out fraudulent passports and working jointly on search and rescue missions. Havana protested against American laws that allow Cubans to stay in the US once they get their feet on American soil. Later today, they're expected to discuss the mechanics of re-establishing their respective embassies.
Well, the two delegations has been talking on a very respectful way. I think that we have many points of coincidence, in the way we are dealing. We congratulate each other because of the fluent communication that exists between the Coast Guard of the United States and Tropas Guardiafronteras of Cuba.
Despite the clear differences that remain between our countries, the United States and Cuba can find opportunities to advance our mutually shared interests as well as engage in a respectful and thoughtful dialogue.
Diplomats from Russia and Ukraine agreed yesterday to a dividing line from where both sides should pull back their heavy weapons. Foreign ministers from Russia, Ukraine, Germany and France said the four parties had agreed that the demarcation line defined in the Minsk agreement of last year should form the basis for the withdrawal. Under the plan, Ukraine and the pro-Russian separatists would pull back their heavy arms 15 kilometers on either side of the line. However, there was no agreement on a total withdrawal of troops. A peace agreement put forward by Russia last week was rejected by Ukraine as an occupation plan. This agreement came just hours after separatist forces deployed more arms and manpower in eastern Ukraine.
Former Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra insists she's innocent ahead of a vote in her impeachment hearing. Yingluck gave her closing statements in front of lawmakers before their vote tomorrow. The former premier argued that a controversial rice subsidy scheme was aimed at benefiting the Thai people and that she'd done her best to stop corruption. She insisted the case against her is politically motivated. A guilty verdict on the charge of dereliction of duty could see Yingluck banned from politics for 5 years. She's accused of negligence for failing to halt the program that paid farmers double the market price for their produce. Huge stockpiles were then left unsold, resulting in $4 billion in losses.
And still to come in our news tonight. Premier Li Keqiang says the mainland's economy is not heading for a hard landing. Hong Kong falls in global living quality rankings. And special traffic arrangements for the Hong Kong Marathon this Sunday.
Discover everything from the real contents of fruit juice, the addictiveness of chocolate, to the health benefits of curry and spices. Foodie and health guru Nikki Muller will take you on an exploration of food origins to dispel the many myths of nutrition. Tonight, The Food Detectives at 9:30 on Pearl.
Once again, I must ask too much of you.
Saturday.
This memory is everything.
Only he
You're the chosen one, Harry.
can unlock the secret
The artist would leave the fate of our world to chance.
that can save them all.
Fight back, you coward!
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince on Pearl.
Michelin star-winning French-Japanese cuisine, luscious Asian and European-inspired pastries, health treatments and accessories for men, plus functional bathroom designs. Tonight, Dolce Vita at 10 on Pearl. The time now is 7:42. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
Welcome back to TVB News. Premier Li Keqiang says the mainland's economy is still on the right track despite slowing growth. In a keynote speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, the Premier stressed the world's #2 economy is not heading for a hard landing. Comparing the economy to a train, he said this train will not lose speed or momentum. Li said the Chinese economy will continue to feel downward pressure this year, but that simply reflects what's happening in the wider global economy. GDP growth on the mainland eased to 7.4% last year, the weakest since 1990. The Premier said China will continue to press ahead with reform and open itself to foreign investors.
And in more local news now, the Environmental Protection Department has submitted a paper to the Legislative Council to regulate the disposal and recycling of electrical appliances and electronic equipment. Under the government's proposal, consumers would be able to request vendors to remove their old appliances. Rani Samtani has more.
What do you do with your old electrical appliances when you buy a new one? The Environmental Protection Department has submitted a paper to the Legislative Council on the Producer Responsibility Scheme for waste electrical and electronic equipment. It covers 5 types of equipment: washing machines, refrigerators, air conditioners, televisions, and computer products such as desktop PCs, tablets, and printers. The Environmental Protection Department has proposed that every time you purchase a new electronic product, you can request the seller to take back the old appliance that you are replacing free of charge. The retailer or vendor can then arrange with the supplier for the old equipment to be collected and sent to a recycling service provider. This way, old electrical or electronic equipment can be collected more efficiently to be handled by a recycling